We had a That's the only question I always ask in podcast. Like, is this a serious professional?
Yeah.
What's your language? Or is it more like just be yourself?
I would say more be yourself, definitely. Yeah, definitely be more yourself. And, whatever you're comfortable with. Like we had a guest once come and they were swearing a lot. And then he told me after, he's like, cut all my swearing. Could have cut out the swearing. So whatever you're comfortable with kind of putting out there. And then also, we'll generally, we have an editing process and stuff. So if there's anything, I can show you the stuff before it goes out. And if there's any comments or anything, we can go through it. Okay, mic's okay. This close. They're good.
Is it straight or
whatever for carnivals. All right, I'd like to welcome Sahil Jaggi.
yeah?
To the NS podcast. You got the lucky episode 10.
Thank you.
We're just 10 deep and we're still kicking off. So thank you for coming and appreciate your time, man.
Really appreciate you having me here.
Yeah, no,
Pleasure to be here.
I'm excited. We've been chatting a little bit before getting the recordings going, and I'm really excited to talk about sort of what you're up to and a little bit about your journey. I know you've been on a few different podcasts, so I know there's some people that are maybe more familiar with what you're up to, but definitely looking to kind of get into some of the different details and things like that. So Sahil, I know you're a realtor and a real estate investor. You got about a $25 million portfolio, 34 doors, right?
Yeah.
So that's awesome. I appreciate it. I know you have a background in, or you had kind of started your career in finance and Wall Street. Can you quickly tell me about how you kind of got started in real estate and how that kind of transition happened?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a first-generation immigrant, came here when I was like 17 years old, planned us to go to university. In university, I decided to take finance, and back in 2004, finance was the big thing, right? Before tech rolled in and real estate became very like the glamorous thing to do, it was always about finance. So I went to school. I went to Laurier. I took a double degree in economics and finance, and the dream was to work in finance. And I got my dream job. I got a job in Wall Street in New York, straight out of the university, and it was unbelievable. It was a great experience, but it just never resonated with me, right? So I spent 4 years of my life in Toronto, and I kind of missed Toronto. I kind of missed living in Toronto. I missed my friends. And the job of finance, it's just like, you're not doing something for yourself. It's not entrepreneurial. And that's something that I always wanted to do. I wanted a bit more flexibility and creativity in my life. So I decided to quit banking and come back to Toronto essentially without a plan. Mm-hmm. And I decided that, anything that doesn't require me wearing a suit and everything does require me sitting in an office. So I took a job with Nestle corporate sales in Toronto. And this is going back 2009. So as I was a sales rep in Nestle, I was like, okay, you know what? I want to buy a property for myself. And I started looking at condos. And this is like me trying to do research for myself to buy real estate. And I looked at the price of condos, and it was in the Yonge and Sheppard area in North York. Yep. And I looked at the price of condos at the time. It was about $400,000 for a 2-bedroom on Yonge Street. And then I looked at some homes that are right besides Yonge Street, very close, 50-foot lots, bungalows that can be converted into 2 units for $500,000. So the gap between condos and big lot bungalows, small houses on big pieces of lot, was very small. Mm-hmm. And that just got me very intrigued. And I guess my finance and economics and just, I just started going from there, researching more. I ended up buying my first property. There was a hack involved because I lived in the basement and I rented out the main floor, and I realized that all my mortgage payment was being covered by the main floor tenants. That was the plan. And that model just really resonated with me. I was just stunned by the fact that in 2010, how undervalued properties seemed to me compared to the other big cities like New York, Singapore, like just the top metropolitan cities in the world, right? And I'm well-traveled. I come from India, and so I have traveled these places. And at that time, I figured that, financing wasn't that hard. And that's how I pretty much got started. I bought a first property for myself. And this was back in 2010, and fast forward 13 years, I kept doing that same model. Obviously, I got better and better at it.
Yeah.
And today I own a $25 million portfolio with 17 properties and 34 doors.
Man, that's amazing. What a story. I was interested when you mentioned that you came here when you were 17.
Yeah.
Tell me a bit about that. Like, what does that look like? You came from India?
Yeah.
How that's a pretty late age to come, and how were you able to be so successful so quickly in a new country?
Yeah, and you know what? This probably goes out to a lot of international students. Like Canada is full of international students, and as you know, like it's not easy to leave everything behind and just come into a new country. But at the time, it was like a new life for me. It was a lot of opportunities, and education is on paper supposed to be higher education in paper is supposed to be better in like North America. So I came here on my own. My family still resides there. So as 17-year-old, I was just full of dreams, and I was just like, all right, we're gonna come here. There's a huge responsibility on every international person coming into the country with that need to prove that you can make it.
Yeah.
Right, because there's a lot of responsibility on your shoulders, and a lot of that, how do you say, a lot of hopes that you'll do well.
Yeah.
So I was always determined and ambitious, but by nature I'm also a very lazy person, or at least was when I was back in the day, right? So it took me a while to really adapt to the culture. It's such a huge cultural shock coming from a country like India, where I grew up all my life, and all of a sudden I'm in Canada. I don't have that much family. I had some aunts and uncles who were super helpful with me, but you just didn't have that ability to you were just thrown into the world and asked to adapt, right? I did go to an English school. I went to a British school in India, so I kind of had there was no language barrier per se. Of course, there's an accent barrier and there's a cultural barrier.
Yeah.
But I think there's a competitive advantage there. There's an immigrant advantage that I call it, which is that if you force that early in your life to then say, okay, you know what, I'm going to adapt and I'm going to learn a completely new culture and I'm going to succeed in that environment, it almost teaches you to be very get survival skills.
Yeah.
Right? You're basically figuring out every little thing on your own, how to get your driver's license, how to figure out rentals, how to because there's no one else assisting you. So everything falls on you to get to where you need to be. So by default, I think as an immigrant coming into the country, you get to learn things very fast because you're in survival mode.
Yeah.
So I consider that as one of my biggest weapons, right? So when people say that, oh, you're coming to the country, you're at a disadvantage. No, I think you're at an advantage because you're forced to learn things quicker.
Yeah, it's true. And I moved out on my own when I was pretty young at the age of 18, and I came to the country when I was 4. And so I'm also an immigrant, but I came a lot earlier than you did. So I kind of resonate with some of what you're saying, but I get what you're saying. So it was like there was a lot of pressure back home because, you're going to Canada and for you to be successful.
Yeah.
That kind of pressure. And then, nowadays I feel like, I have a couple kids. I don't know if you have kids.
Not yet.
No, okay. But it's just, I feel like, we try to make it really easy for them. And that experience that you went through where you were just thrown in pretty young age at 17 and you had to kind of figure out, everything on your own, that goes a long way, I think, in terms of kind of building your grit and kind of your toughness and your ability to maneuver different situations.
100%. Would you say a big factor?
Yeah. Would you say that's like more important than, other like your education or things like that?
100%.
Really? Eh? Yeah.
Like education is just a small part of it. I think the environment and adaptability skills and, I also think that working in Wall Street investment banking also toughened me a lot because you need a very thick skin to work in a city like New York City in a competitive world like finance.
Yeah.
So that 1.5, 2 years was also like a big factor in making me a little bit more thick skin from a business standpoint.
Yeah.
But just day-to-day survival skills, ability to come to a new country, make friends, get out of your comfort zone, understand what even like your day-to-day habits of people is. Everything's different there, right? How you eat, how you talk, how you make friends, how you go out. Everything is different. Yeah. And the adaptability skills that I'm mentioning, if you can learn those quicker and early on, it just helps you becoming an amazing salesperson. Yeah. And that's probably attributed hugely to my success in real estate sales.
Yeah. What would you say is the biggest culture difference coming from a different country to Canada?
I think back home, at least from where I am, North India, we're accustomed to a very intimate society, I would say, right? Like, for example, it's not uncommon for neighbors to ask each other for help. It's not uncommon to rely on your network in a very intimate family manner which attributes mainly to if you want to go into a business or something like that. Okay. I think in Canada, you're more solo and you're a little bit more thrown out alone. Yeah. Per se. How people party, small things like if you're eating out, it's very common to just dip into your friend's plate and just eat it. Yeah. So small things like that. When I came into the country and I made friends and I started eating from their plate, they're like, "What the fuck are you doing?" And so it's just like little things like that, right? It's just completely different culture you come from.
That makes sense.
And that is such a big bridge that you have to cross to be able to blend in, not just blend in, but to be successful, right? So you have to move at a speed which is much faster to catch up and then leave everybody behind if you're going to be in a competitive environment.
Yeah. I feel like Canada is also like, it's very diverse. So we have, different cultures and different stuff.
I think makes a big difference.
Yeah, I think it's good. One thing I find about Canada, and I talk to people from different parts of the world and even back from Poland and Europe, I feel like do you find it to be very much like focused on business and money here, like economics, or
I think people are equally very ambitious back home. I think everybody, everybody back home is also super ambitious, but different patterns of how they make it.
They don't have siestas and stuff like that.
Different patterns of success, I would say.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. Cool. And more of like the collaborative environment where people are really working together, is helping each other out.
Exactly.
Okay. Tell me about like what point did you go all in on real estate?
Yeah. So 2010, I bought my first property. And then since then, 11, 12, 13, I was on a buying streak because what I realized was that I didn't have that much capital to begin with. I started with $80K. Right. So I bought my first bungalow at $500,000 and I put down like about $60K and then took a loan with my salary that I was making with Nestle. And then I realized, okay, I started saving, but I also needed joint venture partners. So I started like seeking out other investors and explaining them the model and saying, hey, look, we both have similar goals. Why don't we both pitch in $50K each and we start buying houses? And back in the day, I'm talking about pricing of these homes being like 500, 600K.
Yeah.
Right. Market definitely played a big role, but it's not just the market. The asset class that I was investing in and the sweat equity that we were putting into these homes to turn these single family bungalows into duplexes and creating double income, refinancing the money back. So we call it the BRRRR model today. We didn't have a word for an acronym for them back in the day, but I just basically use a lot of joint ventureship, a lot of different techniques to like grow. And then the first property I bought, which is 515 in 2016, I sold it for 1.5 without putting much work. So I pretty much cleaned out $1 million, which I reinvested back. It gave me that initial capital power through market and market appreciation as well, right? But market appreciation is one thing. How much, if you throw a dart in Toronto in 2010, you buy anything, it's appreciated, right? But question is, you truly understand your success in real estate, but how much have you beaten the market by? If market's appreciated by 8%, how much above that 8% is your asset performing? Is it true factor or true determinant of how well you're doing in the real estate market, right? So my assets, if you calculate in the span of like 8 to 10 years, have beaten the market by 14%. And the beauty is
in the market, so like the 8 plus the 14?
Exactly. Wow. So as an example, like if market's growing at 8% or 10%, I was beating the market by 14 to 15%. So that was a very important metric that I always paid a lot of attention to. And I sold models similar to the investors. And I said, talk in 3 years and we're going to look at the market. We're going to look at your return. And we're going to talk about how much you've beaten the market by.
Yeah.
So that really helped me scale fast.
Got it. And so I did the math on your doors and your properties. And it seems like all of them are 2-unit kind of duplex properties. So is that kind of the consistent strategy that you've had across the board, where you take a single family home and turn it into a legal duplex?
So I would say majority of my portfolio is that, not all of it. So I do own 2 condos and I also own a mixed use commercial building with a couple of partners, which is basically 100 feet in Etobicoke, where we have about 18 units. It's a mixed use, which we have residential on the top floor and commercial on the main floor.
18 units in one building.
Correct. 2 buildings combined. So there's 100 feet with 7 commercial units and then residential units on top. So that's diversity that does exist in my portfolio.
When did you diversify?
2018 is when I bought that building. I recognize that it's good to diversify a little bit. I think it's also helps with I still think that the assets of buying small house on a big piece of lot that can be potentially converted into duplex still remains to be one of my favorite asset classes to purchase on. And in this market today in 2023, I am looking to double down on that specific model. But for the sake of diversity, I did invest in condos and I do have some mixed use commercial properties as well.
Interesting. What are your thoughts on the new, proposals and legislations in terms of the multiplex study that's going on in Toronto? Do you think that are you excited about that? Is that something that you think will have an impact on some of the opportunities of the properties you're looking at, or?
I have a lot of comments on that. I can go on a rant just based
just
on
on that.
today's legislation and how the policies and Bill 23 and how this is all affecting.
Yeah.
I think that it all comes down to density.
Yeah.
Right? We're talking about supply has consistently been short compared to demand.
Yeah.
And the only way to tackle supply is to build more on existing land.
Yeah.
If we were to dumb down the problem and say, what is the problem here? Why is the pricing going out of control? Why is housing unaffordable? The main problem stems from supply.
Yeah.
Right? So if a government looks like, what the hell do we do if there's a lack of supply? We have to allow people to build more on existing land.
Yeah.
Right? Especially freehold land.
Yeah.
So
Toronto.
Especially in Toronto. And there is a huge amount of homes like these Second World War bungalows where they're sitting on, massive lots, 40-foot, 50-foot lots. There's still a lot of areas and neighborhoods that have this big lots with small homes on it. And those should be used for better use.
Yeah.
There should be a higher and better use for them.
Yeah.
Right? So government just playing into trying to increase supply. What the government is missing, and I think which is, I don't want to call them delusional, we should refer more to red tape or just their complete inability to understand that execution is not as easy as just coming from the provincial government and putting these bills. Because at the municipal level, we have a lot of problems. We have a lot of red tape.
Yeah.
Try and go and take a bungalow and say, I want to build a 2-story or a triplex on this.
Yeah.
Try that, right? First of all, you need a set of approvals that will probably last you 1 or 2 years. If you need consent to sever, or if you need consent to change zoning on it, good luck, right? Because you need thousands and thousands of dollars. You need committee of adjustments hearing. Potentially, that committee of adjustments will turn into TLAB, which is Toronto, local appeal body. And even then, they will stack development costs on you that will probably make you bankrupt by the time you get the fucking place to build.
Yeah.
So it's very easy to sit there at the high chair and say, we're going to increase supply, we're going to build 1 million homes, but who is looking after the execution at the municipal level? Yeah. Nobody. And I don't think that they have sense of reality. And I think the plan is good. I think the intention is right.
Yeah.
But by the time it actually falls into the execution level at the municipal level, they have to eliminate tons of red tape. They have to eliminate tons of bureaucracy. And they really have to remove some development costs and encourage developers to go ahead and take this. Passing a law that you can go ahead and build is not enough. You still have developers will build only if there's money on the table for them. Mm-hmm. You have to give encouragement, right? But all they do is at the municipal level, there's red tape, there's tons of delays, everything's backed up. Nobody in the city is working at their efficient levels. Yeah. Not to mention they're slapping HST fees on people. There's no profit left. Yeah. So who's going to come and execute your brilliant plan of increased supply, right? If developers are not going to be encouraged, they're not going to build.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense.
That's my short version.
Yeah, no, that's good. So you're finding that even in smaller cities, there's a lot of pushback on the municipal level and a lot of different loops to get around when it comes to building. But you're saying even in Toronto that exists on a high level in terms of the red tape.
I think
Some of these smaller
all of Ontario is in problems, right? Because I've heard same problems exist in Mississauga, same problems exist in Burlington, same problems exist almost everywhere.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying go crazy, start cutting down trees and taking down greenery. I think there has to be a balanced approach to things where you have to include the energy efficiency. You have to make sure that, the contents or building materials used by the builder are energy efficient.
Yeah.
I'm all for that.
Yeah.
You want to make sure that the tree canopy remains the same. Yeah. You want to make sure the conservation land is protected. You want to make sure that anything on the water is protected.
Yeah.
But you still need to remove red tape. You need to remove the bullshit that exists in the municipal level if you're going to encourage people to actually use this zoning change you're trying to implement and actually build.
Yeah.
Where is that? I don't see it.
Yeah. I mean, I get what you're saying. And it's, there's a lot of pieces you mentioned there in terms of those different steps that need to be verified. But it's like anything, I guess, with government, it's just slow and tedious. And I mean, I guess, they just want to get their taxes in.
That's it. And that's the difference, right? Like you're going to have all these brilliant plans, but the execution is so far off from reality that that people don't understand why there's still a supply problem if we change. Just changing it at the provincial level doesn't mean anything.
It almost seems like it's just
it's politics.
It's a big money grab.
It's politics, and it's real estate industry's fortune in the hands of people who know nothing about real estate.
Yeah.
They need to hire experts.
Yeah.
They need to hire planning, and they need to have proper synchronization between experts, developers, planners, architects in harmony to be able to execute these plans.
Yeah.
It does not exist.
Yeah. I know there's I've been engaged in some of the startup communities in real estate. I know there's some interesting technology that's being worked on to help some of that process, and be interested to see where that goes. But I get what you're saying. So that's great. Thanks for that rant. It gives me a lot of insight. In terms of the investments, are you primarily focusing a lot of the investments you're doing with the BRRRR strategy still? And is that kind of the
I don't do the BRRRR strategy because I don't renovate to refinance to just take my money out.
Yeah.
I think the BRRRR strategy is overblown. I think the BRRRR strategy is, to me, is like being misused by a lot of experts to sell to people who don't know much about real estate. I think it's as good as a hashtag on the internet. I think BRRRR strategy should be very, very carefully executed because if somebody's putting money into a house to just for the purpose of refinancing it right away, it's the wrong strategy. It's not, the person's not in it for the long run. I think the refinance portion of it has to be very well planned, and you need to have backup plans if the property doesn't increase in value and you don't have enough equity to pull out. I'm the kind of investor that watches my loan to value to the T. My entire portfolio of $25 million, my loan to value is 50%, right? So if you look at the traditional REITs or you look at the traditional industry standard, these days people are so over leveraged, and that's where the scare is. I try to be extremely conservative. You don't see me panicking in the market like this. I'm very relaxed because most of them are fixed rates. And the other part is, if they're not fixed rates, they're sitting with very, very low loans. My equity is quite a bit in my properties.
Yeah.
If I wanted to over leverage, I can double that portfolio in a matter of 3 years. But I don't. I don't like to over leverage.
Got it.
So BRRRR strategy is like, hey, I want to buy something. I want to renovate it. I want to pull my money out and I want to go repeat it. Right?
Yeah.
But that only exists in a very fairy tale kind of market, which you saw in the last 6 to 7 years. But a person who's in real estate for the long term and is a conservative investor will never go around doing the BRRRR strategy to scale. Because BRRRR strategy, if you're trying to scale and you're operating at an 80 to 90% LTV, a little shift in the market is going to put you out of pocket.
Yeah.
And then good luck.
So your strategy is a lot more conservative in terms of doing it. And I guess it was a good strategy for you to kind of get going. And at the early stages, I guess you're doing that sort of.
It helped me because let's say if I give you an example.
Yeah.
Right. You buy a property for $1 million. Right. The purchase price $1 million. Your loan is $800,000 and your down payment is $200K.
Yeah.
Right. Let's take an example. The $1 million becomes $1.3 to $1.4 million. How that will happen is because you're going to pick a property that's going to be very undervalued. You're going to pick a property because you are just good at picking properties. You're going to find this amazing location. You're going to find a house on a street that compared to a lot of other houses is just being sold at an undervalued property. But that's my step one.
That's it.
I will never acquire a property unless I'm getting a deal, right? Underline it, capitalize it. I want to get a really good deal. My first step is. So you're buying it little up under market. Then I'm coming in and I'm putting extremely smart renos. What I mean by that is I will minimize my reno to maximize the rent so that my cash flow gets all set up, right? And then if there's market push, now I've increased value. Now I've added value to the fact that I bought it for $1 million that was worth 1.1. I've added 80K through smart renos, which has taken the value now from the 900 I bought it at, which was worth, $1 million I bought it at, which was worth 1.1 to 1.2. And now the market took it to 1.3. That usually will happen for me in about 1 to 2 years. If the 1.3 becomes 1.4, how much equity do I have left? My loan to value is 750 is my loan and 1.4 is my equity.
Yeah.
And I did that in 2 to 3 years. That's how I scale. Low LTV. And if at that point, my LTV is closing in at 50 to 60%, maybe I'll refinance another 20%. But I'll never go down below 70% LTV because I'm prepared for markets like this.
Yeah, that's a really smart strategy. I like that. So you mentioned you being able to achieve 14% over the 8% average, and obviously the deal is a part of it. What is the one thing that you look for in a deal? If you were gonna summarize it as the one thing like that, like when you buy it, you feel so confident about it, and it's that one thing that
It's the research, man. It's the background time, and honestly, like I'm also not scattered everywhere. Like a lot of investors are like, hey, let's go look at Sarnia. Hey, let's go look at Barrie. Hey, let's go look at Quatre Hours. Hey, let's go look at Florida. They're all over the place. I'm super focused on one or two areas. And those one or two areas, I will take years to say, okay, you know what? I've looked at all the other areas in City of Toronto. I feel like this neighborhood is really, really good. Now I've got focus on that one neighborhood. Then I will look beyond the neighborhood and I'll start looking at small, like let's say I say Etobicoke or South Etobicoke. That comes with 4 neighborhoods, Alderwood, New Toronto, Mimico, and Long Branch. Which out of those 4 is the best? Now I have further penetration into, okay, out of these 2 neighborhoods are good. But then what streets are good? So I will go so deep into like where I need to buy, and then I will just have my money financing ready and a house pops up there and I know that this is the best house on the street, best house in the neighborhood, best house in the area, and best house in the city. So I just go zoom in until I get, and then I double down in that area. And I do this, I repeat this 2, 3, 4 times.
Yeah.
And that also helps me keep my property management and my infrastructure intact, right? Because if I've got a property manager, if I've got contractors, if I want to eventually build these homes, I've got these homes very close to each other and I can apply economies of scale to be able to scale.
That makes sense.
You're going to buy one property there, one property here, one property there. You're not going to achieve much because you're going to spend half your life and time trying to dissect models.
Yeah.
So you've already dissected a model. You know it works. Why do you have to run around? That's just my strategy. And again, I'm sure there's great deals and I'm sure every person has their method of madness. This is mine.
Yeah. So your confidence comes from not necessarily one thing, but
it comes from like
of things,
tunnel focus.
A lot of tunnel focus on the research. Are you optimistic about New Toronto? Is that
New Toronto is a great area. Long Branch is a great area. You know, there's North Etobicoke now that's popping up. Anything close to the water is, I think, fantastic.
Yeah.
In my opinion, we were just talking about it before the podcast. I think water properties, near waterfront properties, parks near waterfronts, beaches near waterfronts are undervalued.
Yeah.
Look at any city. Go to New Jersey, go to Singapore, go to like any other places. Anything near the water, there's premium.
Yeah.
We're here in Burlington. What's the difference between north and south of Lakeshore?
You know what? It's there's a difference.
There's probably a 10 to 15% difference in purchase price.
It's
why? Because water attracts premium.
Yeah.
Rich people who have the money to buy rich homes are going to want to live a community near the water. Who doesn't like to go for a run in the summer and get water? Right?
Yeah.
So same logic.
That's it. We were talking about it before, and I want to coin the name Water Boy before you do, because I've invested in a few properties on the water, and I agree with that completely. I think that properties close to the water are extremely undervalued, and one of the main reasons is because they're just limited, right? When you look at, like, you talk about land in, the GTA is limited in short supply, and
imagine getting the water to
think about the water. Like, you talk about those numbers in Toronto, it's like, well, double digit numbers in terms of the properties on the water in South Etobicoke.
And better that, if you end up finding like a complete rundown home on a nice lot that's on the water, get into redevelopment. You'll see the kind of premiums you escalate your premiums like crazy. Like, as you know, I'm middle of a development of a home that's right in Toronto, right on the water.
Yeah.
If I was to calculate like how much profit we'll build just through our development, and those kinds of properties are market proof, man, because they go into like a $7, $8, $9 million home, right? After it's built.
Yeah.
So, and people buying them are not sitting there and dissecting 5% up and down on the market. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, who's the buyer for property? Like, talking about the ultra rich.
Yeah.
So, anything on the water, in my opinion, and like you said, I'm with you. Like, it's one of the best real estates to buy.
That's why our new Shoreview real estate team brand really resonated with me, because it's like when you go through the whole Greenbelt and from Niagara to Durham and even further, like, I just feel like those cities around the water, I'm really excited about those, but primarily the waterfront property. So I saw you were doing some work on this property. You're working on the break wall there. There's a lot there, right? There's a lot that goes into working with a waterfront, specifically on the water property.
Yeah, you're adding an extra couple of layers of departments to go through, and I guess people who are existing, your neighbors that are living on the water, they're just a little extra protective.
Yeah.
About who's moving into the neighborhood and what are they building, because, and rightly so, that they're engraved in that neighborhood for a long time. So usually if you're dealing with anything on the water, you're dealing with the conservation authority, you're dealing with parks and forestry, you're dealing with very sensitive neighbors, and you're dealing with a lot of it's just the city is a little extra careful, because that's just prime time land.
Yeah.
right? And you don't want anybody misusing it.
Yeah.
So consequently, you're now put into a position where you're not only dealing with the existing slowdowns in the city, but you're also adding a few layers to it. So always a larger challenge. Larger the challenge, larger the obstacles, usually larger the profits.
That's it,
So if you know what you're doing, you can probably just power through them really fast. And that's what we do here at Make Developments, right? We pick properties that are just a little bit more difficult to build, but we'll push through it.
Yeah. That one, you're adding a couple extra years and a couple extra obstacles, but it's well worth it. It's almost like a one in a lifetime opportunity, right? Because it's like, how often do those go up on the market? In a lifetime, right? And then how what's the chances of you actually getting it for a decent price, right? You're obviously looking for a deal. So I think the waterfront properties are very grossly underpriced, and even just waterfront neighborhoods. I know we've seen a big increase in them, but in Toronto specifically, that south of Etobicoke waterfront neighborhood, I feel like it's very underpriced. It's a lot of times I'll compare it to out here.
You buy a 30-foot lot in South Etobicoke on the water, you probably get it for like $3 million, and you can go to North York, right, in an area like Yonge and Lawrence, and for a 30-foot, you're paying the same price. And like backing onto a fence.
Yeah.
And you barely have any distance between homes. I don't get it.
When I see these Feinberg homes and these Vaughan homes, and I mean, I guess there's a lot of good amenities and different benefits, highways, but you just, you got a couple creeks or something, but it's like, I feel the further you go away from water, I just feel like I'm just losing something. It's that's why I really like this area here in downtown Burlington. Tell me about sort of what is the difference between the investments you're working on now, for instance, or looking at making right now in terms of purchasing, and how they differ from last year, or if they differ. Obviously,
well, the market's completely different, right? We're in a completely different world. We're talking about last year, this time where we didn't see the interest rate increases, and you're talking about 6 interest rate increases. Last year, I wasn't buying. I didn't buy anything last year. Usually, I'm on a buying spree pretty much like every year.
Couldn't find a deal.
No, because the market was too hot. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah,
just find deals in a hot market.
That's the number one rule,
right? So it's a herd mentality. Wherever it's like madness going on, it's like I focus more of my time on real estate sales or development or working on my infrastructure or a lot of other things. Yeah. But when markets dip like this, now I'm gearing it to buy more, right? So I'm ready for a buying spree. I'm looking for deals already. Surprisingly, they've shown a lot of resistance. I think market has shown a lot of resistance. It hasn't been that bad as much as people are saying. I don't think like there's foreclosures happening yet, right? But it's yet to see. I think we're in a transition phase, and anybody who's smart, I'm in the more wait and watch phase, ready to attack phase.
Got it.
But I'm still waiting just to see how the next couple of months go.
Got it.
And I think if market continues to stay resistant and anybody has the ability to go and buy property, and of course, people don't have the luxury of mortgages right now. Mm-hmm. But if you are an investor and you've got the capital and you have the ability to buy, you would be a fool not to get into the market right now.
Yeah.
Right? Because so this is
it. Yeah.
The biggest year you will see a shift of wealth with anybody who is going to buy. 2010, nobody wanted to buy. I bought. Yeah. 2017, when there was a slowdown, I bought. Yeah. I bought 4 properties in the midst of COVID. And that's how I scaled, because they were deals.
Yeah.
Right? So
are you seeing deals right now?
I'm starting to see it.
So you're not in attack mode yet?
I'm almost there. Almost there. And there's a good deal in the market, I'll buy it.
That's it, yeah.
But again, like I mitigate my risk by adding a joint venture partner.
Yeah.
Right? Because you better buy 2. Mm-hmm. 2 good properties with a person rather than 1 property and put all your eggs in one basket. Mm-hmm. So diversity is key. Working with the right professionals is key.
Yeah.
If you don't know what you're doing right now, don't be going out there and buying. I don't even want to go to pre-construction. What's happening there? It's a complete disaster. And that's the stupidity, because in the last 3 to 4 years, we've seen insane amount of money go into pre-construction.
Yeah.
Like, how do you not imagine that at some point in the next 4 years, if you're paying so much premium to these builders, if there's a change in interest rate, appraisals will not come in. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of misinformation in the market, and there's a lot of, I would say, like irresponsible sales happening in the market. Mm-hmm. And I could go on another rant number 2 on pre-construction, but it's a bad time for a lot of people who bought in the peaks and who are about to close, and appraisals are not coming in. Mm-hmm. You'll probably see a influx of pre-construction deals floating around where you can get properties for really good prices, but not happening in resale or freehold market yet.
Yeah. No, I am seeing some assignments. I mean, there's been some positive sentiment in the market, like in the last little few weeks, month. And are you sensing that? Do you think that you know, like, are you sensing that opportunity to attack is going to get better, or do you think maybe it's really the time now?
Yeah, I think it's looking like you have all the signs of it getting better.
Yeah.
But again, there's still a risk factor there.
Yeah.
So far, what we've seen is that people are holding on to their life for their homes.
Yeah.
So they'll probably be cutting down their travel. They'll probably be cutting down what they eat. They'll probably be cutting down where they celebrate, go to restaurants. They'll probably be cutting down on clothes. But people are holding on to homes for their life, right? Because the problem is not just the fact that, oh, I can't afford to sell. Where do you go? Rents are expensive. To buy again is going to cost you more because interest rates are high and transactional fees is insane. What do you do? So there's a freeze right now. There's not that much inventory. There's still people waiting on the sidelines, waiting to see what happens. And some homeowners are in trouble, but they are still cutting down on other aspects of their life and they're holding on to their homes.
Yeah.
That's what I'm seeing. I like to wait another 4 to 6 weeks to see what happens. I wouldn't say sentiment is back or sentiment is getting better. Resistance is happening.
Yeah. We're seeing just from ours, it's from some of the listings we're having, we're seeing, you know, there's, as long as you price it.
Yeah,
Price it at
this
market
is
value.
resistance.
Yeah.
This is resistance to
Some good showings.
resistance to,
You know,
yeah.
few offers on some properties. So it's interesting to see that that there is some, you know, some positive kind of sentiment coming back to it. We did a report last time, and, you know, some of the numbers in Hamilton and Niagara, they went down, you know, a lot more after, you know, in the last year.
TA usually always hits more than the core Toronto, which is another reason why I try to stick to Toronto.
Yeah, Toronto didn't see the fluctuations. Like, you know, the outskirts went up crazy during COVID, and then they went down, you know, crazy.
That's what I'm saying. Like when you buy in Toronto, yes, the returns are a little less.
Yeah.
But what about your risk? People don't factor risk into their
Toronto, and I've met a lot of people that just swear by, you know, Toronto. They don't want to even step outside of that border, and it makes sense. I think that, you know, there's a certain level of you know, risk mitigation inside Toronto. So what is, you know, you're sort of in almost in attack mode. What does that perfect investment look like right now? Like, what are we looking at?
Again, I would say, like, you know, I'm open to mixed use commercials.
Okay.
And I want to stick to my same model because it adds on to my infrastructure, being able to manage these single family homes that can be converted into duplexes, potentially with garden suites, triplexes. There's a lot of different upside to these properties.
So you are sort of looking at that bill, and
I'm buying properties that have the ability to get approved.
Got it.
Right? And
Is that
80% of the properties that are in my portfolio are all applicable towards going and adding a garden suite. Because they're small homes to begin with.
Yeah.
And I have driveways that go in the back. They're bungalows that with long driveways and garage in the back, which can be turned into a garden suite. So I'm trying to get perfect big lots, 40 plus lots, ability to go get duplexed, right? And what's the upside? Can you build a big house here? Can you add a garden suite here? Can you turn it into a triplex? Sky's the limit.
Are you looking at custom homes or more of the duplex kind
To
of?
buy custom homes?
No, I'm just like find lots for custom homes. Is that
Yeah. So again, like I don't buy homes that, hey, I want to buy, build, sell. I would like to buy, hold, and if and when the time is right, you build. I just don't sell to developers anymore. I buy and rent,
Yeah.
and I hold.
So you'll buy a lot and rent it, and then potentially in the future you might say, I might put a custom.
I like to have control over when I build. And I like to have the power to hold them through cash flow.
So you kind of go in with a very minimal, kind of minimalistic approach where
Yes.
you do very minimal to get the rents going,
That's it.
stabilize the property, and then you say, okay,
Sit on it.
whether it's a duplex,
Sit on it.
multiplex, custom built home, it's a lot that I know I could build on, I can do something with. It has certain criteria that it fits, but I have options in terms of what I do with it. That's kind
Humor being options.
yeah.
And this is exactly the model that I sell to a lot of my investors who have made really good money with me.
Yeah.
Working, and that's why I'm in the business of trying to attract investors who are in real estate for the long term, who are in real estate to build portfolios, and organically and through some smart savings, right? That's the goal. So essentially, I'll buy something, I'll test the model, I'll be successful in it, and I will try to sell the same model to other people
Yeah.
that will replicate it.
So I know you're focused in South Etobicoke. You mentioned
Currently, like I started with North York.
North York.
I started with North York, moved to East York, Did my thing there for a couple of years. Bought a few properties, set them up, build them, and since 2018, I've been focused on South Etobicoke.
Got it.
Yeah.
Are you still looking at North York as in this market? And
No, I think North York is too saturated for my liking.
Okay.
The prices have gone too high, and rents don't ever.
and there's no other neighborhoods that really pique your interest.
No, not at this time. And there are some neighborhoods that I'm.
Water.
Yeah,
The water is just,
there are some neighborhoods I think in Mississauga and different areas that I'm starting to look at.
Okay,
but,
cool.
But not as much as I would say. Like I'm still doubling down more on
Yeah?
South Etobicoke. Yeah.
you're not coming out here to Halton too much.
No, and again, like I'm lazy by nature, man. Like I can't take the drives. I don't have the enough time. I have to sort of like, time is money too, right? It's not just return on investment. It's like return on time, and it becomes a little hard to manage. But I'm sure there's opportunities here. I understand the areas that I focus on a little bit better.
For sure.
Yeah.
And with that said, I appreciate you coming out today. And enjoyed making the drive and coming out.
All good.
What would you say are the largest risks right now? Obviously, interest rates are up, and although there's great amount of opportunity, and I feel like if you can buy in this market, as long as you're okay to hold that property, there's pretty much no risk to some extent. But there's obviously certain risks at this point. What would you kind of?
Yeah, interest rates are, watching your cash flows is very important. I think the biggest risk in the market right now is misled by experts. If you're a real estate investor just getting started out, your biggest risk is that there's too much information. It's simple. You go online, there's 7,000 people making videos every day. Everybody's an expert. Everybody's making info videos. Everybody's throwing information they have no fucking clue about. You have no numbers to back it up. You are not an investor yourself. Apparently, you were in some other industry. You decided to join real estate because you watched Selling Sunset, or COVID made you do it. And you've decided to call yourself an expert, and now you're misleading a lot of consumers. I'm telling you, Robert, like I'm seeing people that are buying with people who have no clue what they're selling. That is your risk.
Yeah.
So number one, make sure that you find somebody who has experience, find somebody who has a successful portfolio themselves to help you guide through the problems that you may occur. And number two, watch the market very closely, because in this market, you can also buy something in yesterday's price, which is stupid. Also, in this misleading situation, people are misleading what you can rent it for, how much reno budgets you will you require. How can someone guide you on a reno budget when they've never renovated themselves?
Yeah.
How can someone guide you on what the rentals are when they don't know how to do a rental analysis? That's your problem. That's happening as we speak. And that creates opportunity for a lot of people who know what they're doing. And that puts a lot of people in a disadvantage and it turns it off. Not to mention, the other risk for real estate investors is the landlord and tenant problems.
Yes.
They're getting worse. You buy a property, tenant doesn't want to pay you. What do you do? I don't have to tell you, but this is like a serious risk of being an investor today, is that you may rent your property to a tenant who will screw you upside down and all your numbers are gone.
Yeah.
So what do you do to mitigate that risk is buy a property in a location that attracts better tenants. Exactly the reason why I also don't go too far away, because I don't know who I'm dealing with. What kind of tenants are in this area?
Smart.
People say invest in Florida, invest in these places. I'm sure there's returns, but I don't know who the hell I'm renting it to. I like to sit down, interview the hell out of this person who's going to go into my property, then choose my tenant.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm a little old school that way. Maybe I'm being a little short-sighted on a lot of different things, but it works for me. And I still have yet to have a problem. I still have yet to go to a landlord tenant board and have an issue over 10 years of investing, managing over hundreds of tenants that I've turned over.
So make sure you deal with somebody that has a track record when you're getting advice and actually has an investment portfolio themselves to some extent.
82,000 real estate agents.
And then the tenant issues, that's probably, you're right. That is
You need somebody, when you get sued by somebody, you want to get the best lawyer. You want to pay this lawyer $300 an hour, get you out of a problem that can potentially cost you $80,000. But I see no problem somebody handing $1 million buying ticket in hands of a person who has no experience. Why? Because they're your buddy? Fine, they're your buddy. But this is also $1 million purchase that can potentially shape your entire future.
Yeah.
I just find it so bizarre, man.
Yeah. No, it makes...
I don't think this was the answer you were expecting.
No, I like it.
It's not being authentic.
No, it's good.
I'm not putting my fellow colleagues on. There's also a lot of super competent people.
Yeah.
There's a lot of smart real estate agents out there. Downtown, focused in areas, know their local markets. I have colleagues that work in Waterloo and Peterborough. I trust 100% when I refer my clients. There's some amazing real estate agents, experienced, or also operating as investors, who will guide you through processes A to Z, like brilliant people.
Yeah.
But I'm saying you have to handpick.
Yeah. I think it's true, and it's kind of what you said. It's you're zoned in on that specific street.
And that's your niche. It's called having a niche, yeah.
And the next gentleman or lady, they might be focused in on a different city. Everybody's got their own specialization that they're focused in or they're invested in themselves. And one of the things I believe in is like in the part of this podcast and kind of interviewing different people, talk to different. I get all these different insights from different people.
And these podcasts is a great way to find these experts. Yeah, listen to them. You almost have a free interview. Spend an hour, like a few podcasts to see, hey man, I resonate with this guy. And I'm not saying my business model is the best model, so work with me. What I'm saying is, if my business model resonates with you through the medium of this podcast, reach out to me.
Yeah.
I'll help you.
Yeah.
If Adrian, who was here on your podcast, his model resonates with you, perfect. He's an expert at what he does. Reach out to him.
Yeah.
It's the same concept that goes. But I'm talking about that 95% of people that don't have a goddamn clue what they're doing, and they're playing with people's money, and there's no regulation. Because you can sell anything to anybody.
Yeah, that's true.
Here's a brochure. Here's a pre-construction. I don't know where the hell it is. I don't know how the maintenance cost is going to be. I don't know what HST applies to you, but just buy it because the pictures look good.
That's it. Yeah. Yeah. I worked for the builder for several. I worked for the builder for several years, and I was always hesitant with pre-construction because I can't see it and I can't touch it, and I always like to go see and touch and be able to add the value to the property, right? And right off the bat, versus this is something you're kind of buying off plans and all this. And I was always hesitant on that. And I ended up, doing more resale investments in that. And eventually I kind of kicked myself in the butt because I was like, oh my goodness, these guys just put a little deposit, sat there for 3-4 years. And, I helped, I helped launch and sell the project in Togo Soleil, right? So, I was there at the early stages. I could have got really good pricing, and it's like, man, some of those returns that people just did for doing nothing, sitting on their ass. So it's like, you kind of look at both sides of the spectrum, and there's different investors, right? Some, but I guess with a program like yours, you can give a lazy investor a lazy solution, because you're doing all the groundwork on it and
everything. Like I'm involved with my clients. Where should I buy? What should I buy? Once I buy it, who am I going to rent it to? How my cash flows are going to look? What am I going to do with this property? I will renovate for them. I will hand them the key with a tenant prop inside. I will find a property management company, or I will in-house property manage it for you. I will tell you when it's the right time to refinance. I will tell you when it's the right time to develop. If you want to get into development, I have a development team that will develop for you. I will tell you what this market is once we develop, what it will sell for. Not just your actual gross profit, your net to tax profit, because I have an accountant and a lawyer that will dumb it down for you. That's why I will attract people like doctors, lawyers, and the smart investors that are giving their hard-earned money in my hands. And trust me, I know the value of hard-earned money because I've earned hard-earned money. Nobody gave it to me. So I know how much it takes to earn that money. And when somebody gives you that money in your hand, it's accountability, it's responsibility, it's your duty to make sure you're giving him the best return, or don't say you will.
Yeah.
If you can't promise, look, I don't promise returns. I promise mitigated risk, a conservative approach, but the right smart approach. That's what you promise.
I love it.
Because who the hell has a crystal ball? But half of the salespeople, oh yeah, look at the market. It's gone up last 10 years. It's going to go up the next 10 years. Shut the fuck up. Come on. We're going to look at last 10 years and then give that person that future and tell you that in the next 10 years, you're going to be a millionaire because last 10 years made people millionaires. That's not for sure. We don't know that. Real estate is good, but timing matters. In the market matters. When you buy matters. How long you hold it matters. And do you have the means to make sure this person's lifestyle is able to manage this investment? It's a lot of things that go into it. So pardon my...
There's a lot of things.
I'm getting a little passionate about the topic, but
there's a lot of things that go into it. I guess some people,
please cut that.
No, it's good. It's good. I guess some people, when you look at a span of 5 years, which it takes to build one of these buildings, in pre-con, the likelihood of that value going up in 5 years is pretty, it's pretty,
maybe it will go up that, but it's still, you're at the whim of the market. You have to make your investments market proof.
I think as long as you can close and hold it,
Yeah.
Right? As long as that, you're not speculating.
I'm not saying all pre-con is bad. I think for a person who can qualify, once
That's what it is. I think it's like, when you got this.
you have to select that pre-construction, like who's the builder, what kind of history does it have,
That's what I'm saying.
what kind of like other buildings has he executed, how many delays has he had in other buildings.
It's all about the building.
There's great builders, Minto, all these guys.
I swear by it.
One of the best builders I hire. Yeah,
Picking the right builder is
absolutely.
like some of these things you're seeing on
That is all I'm saying.
the newer builders is
That is all I'm saying.
and it's the same with you. It's like you're building your reputation,
Yeah.
and you're gonna build that credibility, and then you're gonna be the resource, right? And it's the same thing. It's
Just going with selling your dreams without any concrete evidence or without any credibility. What rubs?
Man, I'm telling you, those waterfront, those returns on those waterfront condos, it was like, it's crazy just for that little deposit, and some people scooped up a few of them, and it was a great way to get some easy returns, but it all depends on the investor. Okay, so tell me, in terms of, would you be able to sort of give me a rough idea of kind of the ROI that you might be getting for some of these these projects that you're doing, and if you probably might not have that number, kind of ready to go.
Every project is very different, and I've got spectrums, right? Like in some
Obviously, with the leverage of real estate and all these different factors like appreciation, cash flow, it's hard to calculate what it is. But I guess if you were to stay in finance on Wall Street, do you think the returns of real estate are better than you could have achieved in Wall Street or investing in stocks?
No, I think the leverage part and obviously how the Toronto real estate in the last 10 years has performed. And on top of that, if you've made a lot of aggressive investments, but you're fundamentally been correct, I don't think that kind of return could have in any shape or form been achieved by stocks, right? Because of the leverage part.
That's what
It's the leverage. But the risk is also real, because if you're over leveraged and you're entering into a bad market, like imagine somebody has 7 properties and they're in variable rates and they're over leveraged. What do? You're wiped out.
Yeah.
Right? And I've seen people do that as well. They're going with B lenders, and they'll just for the sake of adding doors, they will refinance to the T. They'll take HELOCs. They'll take private loans. That's the wrong that's the wrong dark side of real estate. That I feel that, they have too much faith in real estate. Yeah. So if you're asking me about historically speaking in the last 10 years, sure. But I'm just telling you, like, it's important to understand the risk also that comes with leveraging, right? It's not all just the fact that, hey, leverage can give you a higher return. Anything with higher return has a higher risk. It's how you play that risk is what matters.
Yeah.
Make sense?
Makes sense. But the risk factor, I think, in real estate versus stocks is mitigated, you think?
Yeah, I would say so. Like stocks is like, again, like, are you buying blue chip stocks? Are you buying like, penny stocks? Are you buying something that you understand? Are you reading financial statements? Are you using something? Again, I've been out of the game for like over a decade, man. I don't do stocks. I don't gamble. It's for me, I like didn't literally.
I'm thinking if you were
as much as my portfolio has scaled, you'll be surprised. I'm one of the most conservative investors you'll ever meet. I just don't hold back, and if it's time to take action, I'll take action. But I don't just close my eyes and jump into something and leave it to the market.
Yeah.
So
no, I was just trying to say if you were to go down the Wall Street route and go down that route, obviously the real estate endeavors have been more favorable.
Absolutely, no regrets. Not to mention, I absolutely love my time in real estate.
Yeah,
I enjoy every minute of it. Real estate's my passion to the core. Like you have to pull me out to go watch a movie, man. Like this is like amazing. And as you mentioned when we were chatting earlier, like there's so many different things to it.
So many different.
I started as an investor, segued into real estate agent, investor focused. Then I was like, okay, you know what, development, and there is nothing more that excites me to wake up and just go shoot the shit with guys at the site.
Yeah.
You learn, right? How are the footings put? How are the foundations put? What kind of concrete? To watch something go from 0 to 100 as a finished luxury homes is the best feeling.
The physicality.
So I'm following my passion doing this stuff, right?
Yeah.
So
the physicality of the asset is just, I think it's an important
tangible assets, right? Like I love it.
Yeah.
And the houses that are sold that are luxury homes, you drive by them and somebody's living there. It's like the feeling's awesome.
Yeah. No, it's amazing. All right, Sahil, thank you for joining us, man. It was a pleasure having you. I think that's it.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, man.
Awesome. Good stuff. All right. Good. That's it.